one thing I actually wanted to touch on, and again, this is going to piss off a lot of Max fans, which I tend to do a lot. So the question is actually based on what Damon Hill said, where he said that he silenced a lot of critics.
Yeah.
I do not agree with this at all.
Well, the Brazilian Grand Prix is over, and there was an absolute masterclass by one man that everyone had been either shooting down if you didn't like him, or doubting, or basically saying, where was he? And that man is Flavio Briatore, an absolute masterclass this weekend. I think we can all agree. And I think Verstappen did well as well, right?
First of all, fuck Flavio. I think let's get that out of the way. Yeah, and Max did all right.
Yeah, Max did okay. Yeah, lots to talk about. So
yeah. So
where do we
have
begin?
You finally caught on with the whole thing? I mean,
yeah.
I had an eventful Sunday, or the entire weekend.
There was. I didn't think I drank that much, but I realized I brought 24 beers, and no one else was drinking. 350 milliliter bottles, so still
pints,
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, pint in Ireland is 500 millimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit less, but there was 24 in the fridge. I thought that, I hadn't drank that much until I realized that not only had I gone for 12 more at night, but also that no one else was drinking beer. So apparently one or two people took one at some point, but it looks like I drank like 20 of those, then had some rum. So I was dying during the entire race.
That's a lot.
That started at 8:30 a.m. for me. So yeah. Yeah. So if anyone noticed I wasn't on Twitter, that's I was dying, so I could not care less. Yeah. So my morning went about as well as Lance Stroll's weekend. So yeah.
Could have been worse. Could have been Lando Norris's weekend.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So talking about dying,
yeah,
Lando Norris's title hopes. I think they're dead by now, isn't it?
Over.
They're gone.
Yeah. I mean, he would need a miracle, right? It's 20 points per weekend he would need now.
I don't even know.
A little bit more.
No, I don't think I even.
Was it? It's 62 points.
Done.
It's 62 points he's ahead. And so there's three weekends left. So yeah, 20.
3 races and 1
points.
sprint. Right?
Yeah, so he'd need like 21 points per weekend, something like that.
Yeah,
exactly 21 points per weekend. It's not happening. He's mathematically still in it, but it's not happening. Let's be honest.
Yeah, true. It's
over.
It's done.
Yeah, unless Red Bull, move their bib or something.
Right? It's the British bias.
No. Well, I'm saying unless Red Bull move their bib some weekend between now and the end of the week or end of the month, and then
or maybe the cooling trick for the tires work for a season,
maybe.
Right?
Yeah. But that would be McLaren, no? So
yeah, but that'll help in some way.
Yeah.
Anyways, Max Verstappen. I mean, first, what's your view? How would you rate the entire thing?
Absolutely brilliant. He got very unlucky in qualifying. I think, to be honest, with the red flag, I've thought about this since, because I went back and obviously I was dying yesterday, so I went back and watched the qualifying and watched parts of the race again.
We will the entire. Don't explain the whole thing.
Okay.
And don't give your take. We'll get to that later.
But yeah, look. Regardless.
So by the way, stay tuned for that as well.
Okay. Look, I mean, whatever way, we'll talk about it in a while. But yeah, unfortunately, qualifying didn't go well for him at all. Ended up P17. They might as well have just used the FP1 session results with the way that grid turned out. Essentially, it was basically the same.
It was just the same.
I actually think it would have been better for Max if they had used FP1. I can't remember, but I'd need to look again. No, he would have been 20th, so he would have been 3 places worse off. But yeah, so that didn't go well. As you said, we'll talk about that later. But an absolute masterclass in the race. In fairness, a little bit of luck went his way there. The red flag was well timed. I will say one thing. I am very surprised.
I wouldn't say the red flag, by the way. I'd say the safety car.
Maybe so, the safety car, yeah, because Norris and Russell had pitted under VSC, then the safety car came out, then the red flag. But yeah. I will say one thing. I was watching that very, 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 very hungover, as I've already explained. So I was a little surprised by McLaren's actions, because even my half-dead brain saw Max kind of, where he was when they pitted. And I said to myself, even if Max's tires are worn and it starts raining, he's going to just hang it out because he has nothing to lose by just trying to hold track position. So it's like, realistically, why are they pitting now? They should absolutely just forget about Russell, because that doesn't matter. If Russell wins and comes second, you're still getting a points lead. So, why not just hang it out, wait until Max pits or Max is forced to pit, and then see what happens. So I was a little bit surprised when they did that. And then as soon as the red flag came out, my brain just went, yeah, thought so. Like, told you, that was a bad idea. So I was surprised McLaren made that mistake, to be honest. I know Norris was talking about it, but the fact that Norris was talking about his tires and they came over and said, look, we're going to hold off here. I was like, okay, well, maybe McLaren are on this. And once again, they weren't. It just feels to me like an obvious thing, especially after Mexico, when Max said, if I was just going to hold him off so he couldn't win, So like, even if he was lying about that, it doesn't matter. McLaren should have thought, well, that's in Red Bull and Max's head now. So all he's got to do is hang it out in front and hope something goes wrong for us. So I don't know. It was an odd choice, I thought. I get the logic, but obviously it didn't work out.
What's the logic in your view?
They probably thought that when the rain because the rain did get a lot heavier. So they probably thought under the heavier rain, the worn tires would be a problem. But I don't think they were accounting for the fact of like, okay, well then you can just probably slow it down and hold off because it's going to be a problem for everybody, including Max. And I think once again, it's kind of targeting the wrong people. Like, they were focused on Russell, which I think was just the wrong idea. Like, you're in a title fight, you focus on Max. Max is only focused on you. So you've got to beat him at his own game. And it's once again where, look, Norris made some mistakes. We'll talk about, I'm sure, a lot of these things, but it's once again where I feel like McLaren don't have their head in the game right. And we'll talk about maybe Norris more, but I kind of am getting the feeling that if we got the same season next year, or maybe not the same, but if we get Max and Norris on equal par next year, I think the people writing off Norris need to be a bit careful as well, because I think this has been the period that has basically, like I've said earlier, battle hardened him. That response he gave after the race, he would not have given normally, and I know he probably regrets saying it a little bit, but I like it.
It's it's a clip. It's a out of context clip. He didn't say anything on that lines. It wasn't really. He didn't say that Max was. What was the clip? He said that
it's not talent. It's just luck.
Yeah, and that was not for Max per se. He was talking about the strategy and everything around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
it
was, and again, the assholes on Twitter and wherever.
See, I only saw it as a Max. Yeah, I didn't watch the interviews because, like I said, I was dying and throwing up. So I just saw clips of it. All right. Well, if you didn't say it about Max, then that's fine. And to be honest, I was like,
that's what happened actually. As soon as I got the audio clip and I was hearing it, I couldn't really get the context, what was floating on X and everything. And again, the kind of fans are assholes. We'll get to that later.
I think regardless, I think this period, like Austin, Mexico, and Brazil, I think this you can see Lando's attitude towards Max and towards the way he races and stuff completely changing. And I think next year, the bigger onus, realistically, if they have a car again next year, I think, look, anyone who doubts Norris, I think the problem I've doubted Norris on has been his mental attitude. I think there's been points where he's let himself down. He's focused on the wrong things, all these. He's maybe given Max a little bit of a pass. They've been too friendly. I think there's been certain things like that. I think when it comes to race pace and qualifying, anyone who says Norris isn't top tier is just biased as far as I'm concerned, because he has shown time and time again, when it comes to just raw pace, he is an incredibly quick driver. When it comes to tire management, he's very, very good. Like all these different things. Racecraft. Look at the move on Max in Mexico. Like he just went for it. He can drive wheel to wheel. It's been his attitude. And I feel like the last 3 races, the upside to him not being in the championship anymore is, I think this will put in his brain now to be far more ruthless next year, because he'll know that this has been thrown away now by silly mistakes throughout the season. More so by McLaren as well. Like I've talked about this in the past. So I think next year, realistically, anyone expecting Piastri to just walk away on Norris if they have a fast car, My bets would be against that. I think if they lose the championship next year, it's because of McLaren, not Norris now. But you could see the change in him over this triple header, and I think it's for the best for him. Talking about Max, though, masterclass. I mean, one of his best drives. Did he get a bit lucky with the red flag? We'll talk about it, I'm sure. But realistically, he put himself in a position to take advantage of it. So, I mean, like, you know, if you want to talk about luck, Hamilton, was it 2019? Did the same thing? 2000? No, but there was another drive. Was he starting in 16th so or something? Right? Yeah, but there's been so many where Hamilton, Vettel, all these people have come through the field. And there's always a little bit of luck, but
obviously, I mean that's part of the sport.
The drive that he put in was spectacular, and 10 out of the 11 last laps he did fastest laps. Just you know, different league. It was incredible. Incredible.
It was him making a statement, and
yeah.
Okay, let's get one thing straight. Max is probably, in my view, I tend to rate drivers after 1975 or so. I don't go before that in terms of the greatest of all time, because it's a different era, it's a different car, and the ecosystem of F1 was different then compared to what happened later.
Yep.
I think Max is right now, for me, he is next to Michael Schumacher.
He's the best driver since Michael Schumacher, without a doubt.
And there's how bad would a Charles Leclerc, a Lando Norris, a George Russell, or Oscar Piastri, or Lewis, or Alonso would feel right now? Because there's a fucking Max Verstappen on the grid. And I think from 1994 till 2004, that was what every other driver felt when there was a Michael Schumacher on the grid.
Yeah, as soon as Schumacher had the right car, they knew he's almost unbeatable.
Good.
Yeah,
he's just too good.
That's why my first year watching was Alonso 2004, was Alonso 2004 was my first year watching. I always get those years mixed up. That was the dominant year for Schumacher, and then going into 2005, it was like no one's going to beat him. Like he's just ultimate form, and that's why even though there's mitigating factors, you could say of like tires, you know, the Bridgestone Michelin. Alonso beating Schumacher, there's a reason I think people who've watched as long as us think of Alonso so highly. Yeah. It's because if someone now comes along and beats Verstappen, if you're a new fan and you're a Verstappen fan, that's what it would feel like, someone beating Verstappen. Maybe that's why the two of us give Norris less of a hard time than a lot of people. Because for me, watching Norris go toe-to-toe with Max and Leclerc go toe-to-toe with Max, I know how good Max is. So when Norris folds under pressure from Max, that's not to me like, Max. Oh, he's bottled, he's terrible. It's like me going, oh no, someone folded to Schumacher. It's like, it's Schumacher. Of course they did. You know, like it's, so yeah, credit needs to be given where credit's due to Max. Incredible. Another incredible drive. And as soon as he got ahead, you just knew that's it. It's over. Like, you know, he's got this.
Yeah. And it's not only about as soon as he got ahead. I don't think there was even one other driver who pulled off the moves that he did.
No.
Ease with which he overtook Lewis, the ease with which he overtook Alonso, Oscar was caught unawares. I mean, he had a shitty weekend, honestly.
Also, apparently, Oscar maybe gives us some insights into McLaren's struggles in the race. That car wasn't great in the race.
I mean, I predicted that as well. Yeah. And even the move on Ocon was not expecting the... It was
Ocon's a hard wheel-to-wheel defender. Like, he doesn't let people buy easy.
In the first restart, he was able to. The second restart, I think Ocon also played safe because he knew the team needed the points. Yeah. So there was also that in the year, and if that was not, maybe he would have been a bit more of an asshole. But who knows what would have happened in that case.
That was the point when he had to overtake Ocon. Same with, not with Leclerc. Leclerc gives space, but with Ocon, I was like,
he's not going to give space.
I genuinely was like, this could be the moment where Max maybe could DNF because he's going to go for the win and Ocon might just go, screw it. Like, I'm taking it. Nothing to lose.
And I think there is a point where maybe I think Ocon would have thought that maybe he could have been a bit more aggressive. But I think once you see Max end the race 18 seconds ahead, there's just no point.
Yeah, no.
It was a waste of time in that case. But yeah, I think for me, what stands out in all of this is if there's a driver that can do something like this when his teammate is not even finishing in points, I think that should tell you something. And again, we shit on Checo a lot. Everyone does. It's become a favorite pastime for everyone right now.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
it's a bit unfair as well. But man, if you're winning the race by more than 18 seconds and your teammate is not even in the picture, this is special talent. I think
Yeah.
that's you have to acknowledge that thing.
Yeah. He is, I think you and me agree on this, the best driver since Schumacher. And
Yeah. Without a doubt.
that is a big statement when both of us are Vettel fanboys, first of all. So Vettel's been one of the drivers in between.
Yeah.
You've got Alonso in between. You've got Raikkonen
there's
in between.
Hamilton.
You've got Hamilton in between. And I
Yeah.
am still saying that now. I think, and it's not just this weekend, obviously, it's everything in the
Yeah.
past, but
Yeah.
conclusively for me, he is better than all of those drivers.
Yeah.
And
Without a doubt.
you can say about the stats everything you want. I'm just talking when it comes to actual on-track performances, because the problem with stats in F1 is a lot of it's down to the car you have, the team you have. There's only so much you can do. But
Yeah.
when he has a sniff, he takes it. And that's Schumacher-esque. That is just not giving up anything, ever.
I think he did not need to do that lunge on Ocon in the second restart.
No,
He did not.
no.
He just needed to finish ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, well,
It was the right side of aggression as well, because there's been a couple of times this year where Max goes over the line. In fairness, it is kind of Schumacher style in that as well, where Schumacher
Yeah,
had times where he
100%.
went over the line. This is the perfect Max, where he's qualified, he's starting in P17. He's pissed off, and instead of getting frustrated and annoyed, he just goes, right, fuck this, I'm taking it. And it was brilliant.
I mean, I don't like patting myself on the back too often, but I predicted it. I
Yeah.
predicted this thing in my preview and everything that I'd done. I mean, before, in our preview, I had not, because by then I'd not seen the weather predictions. And once I saw that, I just called it.
Yeah.
It's Max. And
Yeah.
the reason behind it, and I think it's important we specify this thing. And again, there are a lot of diehard fans which are actually foolish. Let's get this thing straight, because they will
Put it
tell you
mildly.
that they'll tell you that in any car Max was going to win that race, in any team he's going to win that race. I'm going to disagree. The fact that Max won, Red Bull played a big role.
Yeah, of
And
course. Yeah.
and we need to start identifying that, because there was only one driver out of the top 4 teams who actually knew. Again, both the Alpine drivers, they called the shots themselves. It was entirely down to them whether they were going to stay out or pit. Entirely down to them. Mercedes pitted, Lando pitted, McLaren, Ferrari pitted much earlier. I couldn't even
Yeah.
understand why. But again, that's Ferrari.
At least they put wet weather tires on. That's a plus.
Yeah, so that's a plus.
Hmm.
And these are 3 of the top 4 teams in conditions that are like this, where look, championships are won. They are not won on big moments. Like if a Lando winning a race by 20 seconds, that's not going to win you championships. What's going to win you championships is these small moments. The moment in Silverstone where they made the wrong call. The moment in this weekend where they made the wrong call again.
Yeah.
Or in Canada to an extent.
Yep.
These are the small moments that you have to win. And I don't remember the last time Red Bull lost that moment. I don't think
No.
I remember even once this happening. And this is the kind of confidence that to an extent Lewis had in 2018 in Mercedes and Vettel did not have in Ferrari.
Yeah.
And you saw how Vettel crumbled, because 50% of your brain is not even confident that the strategy would be correct.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And that's
you
the thing,
have to
isn't it,
give
when
Red Bull
you're-
the credit.
Yeah, and when you're in these sorts of battles, you need the confidence in your team,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, in fairness to Max as well, Max was saying, I think on the radio he was saying, like, we want to stay out.
Yeah.
But, easily you could have had the team go, no, like, box now,
Yeah.
we need to cover this off, whatever.
Russell was furious with Mercedes. They
yeah.
they forced him to pit, and apparently the same happened with Lando as well on the lap that they pitted. Before
Yeah.
that, of course, there was a logic to it, and the logic was apparently they realized, rightly or incorrectly, that there was not going to be a stoppage. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how bad the conditions were, because the conditions were supposed to stay that in that particular intensity. The rain was supposed to stay for 5 odd minutes. And if you
And then it would
remember,
ease
as soon
off.
as
Yeah.
as soon as the safety car came in, the weather kind of normalized. So that's what the race control had in mind, and that's what they basically banged on, that okay, we'll pit, we'll have new tires, and we'll try to push through.
Yeah.
But then came the then came the safety car, and then came the red flag, and it
Yeah.
screwed everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just things going wrong.
Yep.
Basically.
There is like I said, there's an element of luck there as well. Like, I mean, you know, like it could have gone badly as well for Max. Like if the red flag
Yeah.
and safety car didn't come out, then I think realistically, given how hard it was to overtake and later on, and I don't know if Max would have got past some of those drivers if he had had to box and come back out normally. You know, like there would have been certain drivers that would have been tough for him to get by.
Ocon was pulling a gap on him as well. I think
Yeah.
in 2 or 3 laps, it was around 10 seconds or something, that the gap he had pulled out already. So you could see the Alpine being better as the conditions got worse.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was taking more risks and Max was being a bit more sensible on that front.
Maybe, yeah.
So something on those lines. It's just that, look, again, not harping too much on luck, because again, that's part of the sport and you have to understand these things.
This is the thing. This is all I'm saying. It's like it's not like oh, he got lucky and that's why he won. No, he drove a masterclass and put himself in the right position, and the luck also went his way. Like there's no, it's
Lewis Hamilton
one doesn't-
2008, by the way.
Yeah.
Just to veer in a different direction. Lewis Hamilton
Is that
2008.
Glock?
No, not that one. The Silverstone 2008. It's supposedly the best wet weather drive or something. If you look at the first stint, if Ferrari did not fuck up Raikkonen's tires, Kimi was going to win the race. He was hounding down Lewis, and Lewis decided to pit for new inters, and Ferrari decided to go on the same tires. They didn't really change, just fueled up again, and that changed the race. It's just these moments that work for you or don't work for you. That's just how it works. So
Yeah.
and again, there's a question a lot of people are actually talking about. Someone put a poll out on X as well. In terms of best Brazilian Grand Prix races, where would you put this one?
Well, because he won the race, it's obviously better than him in, was it 2016 when he came through the field? I think it's better than that one. Even though, to be fair as well, like a lot of that was brilliant just because he was such a young driver his first year in was that his first year in Red Bull, right? 2015 was his Toro Rosso year. Yeah. So, and he came from, was it 16th to 3rd or 13th to 3rd, something like that? I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was, I think, as far as I remember, he ended up 3rd anyway. Obviously, this is even better because it's a win, but those were tricky conditions. This was incredible. I'm going to piss off Hamilton fans and say this, for me, is way better than Hamilton's 2021, not just because he came from further back, but also the conditions are different, and it's in a season where the cars are a lot closer.
No DRS.
No DRS. Most of Hamilton's pass were down that DRS on slower cars. So as much as that was a brilliant drive by Hamilton, this is definitely a lot better. I think this is probably the top of them, in fairness. I can't think of another one that outdoes it. I'd probably have to go back a long time.
Yeah. Fizzy 2003. Fisichella.
The year before I started watching, so I don't really remember it. I've
Michael
probably seen clips of
2006.
it. Okay, yeah. Okay, yes.
Vettel 2012.
Well, Vettel 2012, I don't know if it was a better drive, but it certainly had a better outcome, if that makes sense. Yeah.
In what sense?
In that Vettel won the title. And I'm a Vettel fan, so...
Yeah. Why I'm mentioning this is because, again, I don't necessarily know how to rate them. I think Fisichella winning the race in a Jordan is probably something that will stand out a lot for me.
Jesus. Actually, yeah, sorry, that is that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it was also torrential rain, a lot of drivers making mistakes, him keeping his head, and basically, not sure if you remember this one, Kimi was given the win first, and then Jordan appealed because the race got red flagged, and then they went back. The classification went back to one lap earlier,
Okay, yeah, I think I've watched
and
this race back. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Like I
it
said, it was
went
the
to
year before I
physical.
started watching, but because Jordan and Senna and all those things, I've gone back and watched a lot of
Yeah,
races. The problem is because I've not watched them in like the full season. A lot of the time when you're like, oh, this race this year, it's like I've probably seen it or seen highlights at least, but
yeah,
I wasn't watching it like glued to the screen, so it's not quite the same
yeah,
ingestion, you know.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, again, the whole, for me, it's hard to rate which one is better. I'd say it ranks very highly, and I think the context and everything matters. I'd also say one thing. I kind of saw this coming. I don't know why. I just had the feeling since Tuesday when I wrote the piece that it's going to rain. It's going to be chaotic, and I think Max and Red Bull tend to make the right decisions when it comes to this,
Yeah.
and every other team tends to fuck up. The other driver I thought might do well was Lewis in a Mercedes, because he also tends to make the right calls in
Yeah,
these
wow.
conditions. That went pear shaped, but anyways. So yeah, I mean, rounding up the whole thing, I think the championship is done.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I actually wanted to touch on, and again, this is going to piss off a lot of Max fans, which I tend to do a lot apparently in the
Yeah.
last few weeks.
Yeah, because we've just spent like 10, 15 minutes saying he's the best driver since Schumacher, and somehow
Yeah.
we'll still get called anti-Max if we say anything
By the way,
nice or, you know.
I just saw a comment on one of the posts where, and it's a post where I've actually mentioned that Max is the best driver since Schumacher, and the comment is from a former follower. And the comment is, but you also said that Lando is an elite driver. Not so elite now, is he? And
Those two things have nothing to do with each other.
precisely. I mean, anyways. So the question is actually based on what Damon Hill said, where he said that he silenced a lot of critics.
Yeah.
I do not agree with this at all, because at no point in time was Max's ability as a driver ever questioned. The
Yeah.
only thing that was questioned was whether he'll keep it clean, to be honest. That's all.
Yeah.
Other than that, nothing was ever. I mean, did anyone ever question he'll get the best out of the car? Or will he be the best driver in terms of getting the perfect performance from that Red Bull, which is very unpredictable at times? No. The problem was, will he keep it clean? That's it.
If you were still like Damon Hill has talked about how brilliant a driver he is on various occasions. Same as Brundle, same as most of these pundits have all talked about how brilliant Max is. The problem is, it's like there are people like Ted Kravitz, for example, who like to absolutely drool over British bias, right? But then there's, Damon Hill is a former world champion. You don't like some of his opinions, but then you'll like other ones, like that. This is the whole point. Like, if you've watched Max Verstappen until this point and you're still questioning his ability, then as far as I'm concerned, you have to be biased, because
Or
if
a
you're
Lewis
not,
Hamilton fan.
yeah, if you're not convinced by now, you're never going to be convinced. Nothing's ever going to convince you that he is. Even if you want to say Hamilton's better, that is an argument you could have. Like, there's reasons you could say Hamilton's better. We could have that argument all day. I think he's the best driver since Schumacher. I say that as a Vettel fan, so I don't say it lightly. But anyone who questions how good he is, regardless of where you want to put him on that totem pole, it's just like, okay, you're never going to make that decision. So yeah, and Damon Hill, I think, maybe you're right in saying like he hasn't silenced the critics. Depends on what we're talking about. If people were criticizing how good he is, then I don't know if he's silent, if anyone's silenced, because they're clearly morons. They haven't been watching. As for the dirty driving thing, I don't know, because like this was a brilliant drive. It was a clean drive. It was fantastic. But
He
in
was
Mexico,
never in that situation, right? I think the whole thing comes down. Look, if the Brazilian Grand Prix is in dry weather, where McLaren is probably the better car, and somehow Max is in a situation where he's fending off Lando, and if he does not play it fair, and if there are moves which are shady, in that case, he's not basically being the, what should we call it? Then he's not silencing the critics. He never really, he didn't the thing is, we did not reach that point of the championship anyway. It
Yeah.
ended before that.
And we're
Because
not going
if it
to
had-
now, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we're not going to now. So it's probably maybe some other time. The thing is, those questions still remain because whatever I heard from Jos Verstappen and from Max, they are non-repentant and they don't think they did anything wrong. And there's also this act where, look, my car is, what am I supposed to do? Well, not this is what the answer is.
Mm-hmm. yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, I don't think the critics were ever after him for him not producing the results in a Red Bull. They were after him for the stuff he does in the car when things are not going his way.
Yeah, yeah.
We never got the answer to it. We might get the answer to it next season, or we might not, or we might have to wait a few years. But that's
Yeah.
a question that stays, in my view, because it. Again, look, I'm a Michael Schumacher fan, and I understand when these things are done. But I've seen Michael race. I've never seen him justify himself in this way that, look, I have a slow car, so I'll just push him off the track.
Yeah,
He never
yeah.
did that. Yeah.
No.
So, anyways.